Welcome back. South Africa has witnessed a decline in youth voter turnout. Consequently, political parties are integrating social media in their political marketing strategies in order to appeal to the youth voters. And I'm joined in the studio by Ferial Haffajee, who's associate editor at Daily Maverick, and Thebe Ikalafeng, the founder and group CEO of Brand Leadership, and they are here to talk to us about the way the political campaigns went and the mood over the past 90 days up to yesterday, right? It was, you know, there was so much expectation, there was so much anxiety, there was so much unhappiness and anger and service delivery protest, the whole mood. But Thebe, let me start with you. From the way you read markets, how would you describe what happened over the past 90 to 100 days?
I think that's what you expect from a democracy. There's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of engagement, or a lot of civic engagement. The citizens were certainly engaging with the leaders, and the leaders themselves on the other side were trying to position themselves and differentiate themselves in terms of their agenda, in terms of what they are bringing to the party or what they're going to do differently after May 8th. So I think it was exciting. I think this is what we actually voted for in 1994. We voted for an environment where people don't come passively and put an X and say, I'm going to vote the way I voted since 1994. We voted for a country where people can come and engage with the campaigns, engage with the leaders, and make a decision in terms of which is the right decision I need to make for my future, because that's what people are voting for the future and not for the past.
But the sniping and attacks and the messaging of the political parties seem to me to be unsettling to a lot of people, including the media at some point, individuals being mentioned, and you've been on the receiving end of that, Ferial. But I wonder if, you know, it unsettled you when you looked at the way the political parties were positioning themselves.
No, not at all. I guess I've been doing this for a long time. But what was interesting to me is that this was the first social media election. This kind of old studio, the newspaper, really lost to the game. It was all done on social media. So I hope that the next time young people who've really had a voice in the election, if they haven't gone to actually register and make the X on the ballot, will in future really take a central place. So it's been exciting to see the way technology completely shifted how our election looked and felt. I think if you look at the world, and I've particularly been looking at the US, at Turkey, at the Philippines, I think our political debate has matured, and it's exciting, and the rough and tumble was quite democratically done. It didn't have the menace of those countries.
Yeah, and actually, if one went back to the first time, 1994, right? It may seem like 1994 was exciting in terms of the turnout and, of course, the preparations. It was something completely new, and that's why we saw the long queues with fewer voting stations, I'd like to believe, at the time. But the atmosphere was that filled with violence, actually, and anxiety that people might be attacked, and that did not happen. But this time, I mean, over the 90, 100 days, not much of political violence whatsoever on the basis of differences.
Well, I think that's because 94 people are voting with the heart, and the heart is very fragile and very emotional. So there's a lot of emotions involved in 1994, whereas in 2019, people are voting with the head. And when it comes to the head, is less heart and more rational in terms of making a more decisions which are more informed. I think that's perhaps what makes the differences in this instance. I think we've matured we're maturing as a democracy. But you know, I wanted to make also a comment about when you talk about the social media and the youth, is the risk that I'm hoping did not happen is what the people in the social media tend to do all their work on social media and less outside of the computer or the mobile. So the risk that could have happened is there could have been a lot of excitement and engagement on social media, as they do with any other topic in the country, but they actually would have very few people actually have the time to step out and actually go vote.
I think that you're right, because people do feel like the digital world is the real world.
Correct.
So many people were surprised that a Twitter poll doesn't really approximate in the real world. They think that's the real thing. There was the one, did you see the woman who went to a polling station, Instagrammed herself, decided the queue's too long and she wasn't going to vote because it was enough just to be there and Instagram herself. So I think there's some voter education to be done.
And I suppose,
there.
as you say, the Twitter polls, and I've run a few of those, people believe that they are a true reflection, or whatever they see, that's the likeliest outcome of the elections.
I think lots of EFF supporters going to be very surprised because they thought Twitter polls were real, and those all showed they were going to win overwhelmingly.
And I suspect that's what explains the fact that it said about 6 million of young people who should have registered at least did not even register to vote.
There's a lot of youth apathy among the youth. Most of them, they give up too soon, and they think that they can fight the battle differently. A lot of them will say, why am I going to vote? Nothing is going to happen. I wasn't here before 1994, so I don't know what they're talking about. I'm focusing all my energies on what's happening now, and so far they've done nothing for me, so I'm not going to vote. So there's a lot of apathy, and I think that's what Ferial says, that there needs to be a lot of education, voter education, not so much on how to vote, but the why to vote, and the impact that they can have. If you look at what they did, what the youth did during the Arab Spring, you can see, you go to Sudan, and you can see in terms of how there was a proper use of social media, because it was a combination of Facebook and all those, but they complemented that by actually going out into the streets to go complement that. So, but now what you find, particularly here in South Africa, I tend to find is a lot of us have got great mouths and very articulate on social media, but we've got heavy feet. We just don't have the energy and the time to go out and do those, and we give up too soon.
I think it's the election where the 3 million young unemployed South Africans, you feel their presence all over this election. And I was quite sad that in the rough and tumble, a very good idea of the DAs didn't get an airing. They didn't promise like millions of jobs. They said what we need is one job per household. And that tells you a story of, in many homes in South Africa, there isn't a single person working. And that's just gone into the next generation, which for me, I hope is really going to be the focus of President Cyril Ramaphosa, because at least that's one thing that won't be surprising. We know the president.
He cannot escape that one. It has to be on the agenda. But we had 48 political parties contest the elections, at least at national level. What does it say about the South African political landscape? If it is true that we are maturing, that democracy is entrenched, why would other groups still believe that they've got a voice to add to the cacophony of noises that we have in this nation?
So let's look at the US for just a second. Although it's broadly two parties, but within the Democratic Party, you've got 21 or 22 people who are all challenging. So it's a similar mentality. It's a mentality of saying that I think I can do this better. I think I can do this differently. I think we should welcome that. It's okay to have so many people, but the way the world works anyway, in the end, only 1 or 2 or 3 are really going to come to the top. So the others is the noise that you require, that the color. It's the political color and noise that happens, and it should be encouraged. But that Thebe should be able to say, I can be a president in this country.
For me, is as much as we may have had 48 political parties, contesting the elections, one would have thought they'll bring new people to the market, as it were. But they were competing within the same audience, so to speak. You see, if it was expanding the market in a business context, when there's a new player, that it brings new customers on board or new markets, but it does not seem to be.
There's lots of people who threw their hat in the rings, quite new. The Women Forward Party, the ZA Capitalist Party, the SURWAP, the Socialist Revolutionary Workers Party, Cloudy's ATM.
You got Jimmy Manye.
But history shows us that only 13 or 14 parties eventually shake up into making it into Parliament.
And I think the other thing, maybe even closer to your question, the other thing is it's all about trust. So political voting is putting your future on somebody's hands. So the reason you tend to see the old people, the old parties, is about being trusted and about being able to deliver on what you said. Can I trust him? Does he have the infrastructure, or is this just somebody who's going to come up and say, vote for me? Because then ask the questions, but what are you going to do? You won't even have the scale or the access to the levers of power as you are now. So that's why we tend to see the new people. So what one needs to be looking for, rather than necessarily the new people, is new ideas and also proof of new ideas. So for example, and if you look at President Ramaphosa, for example, versus perhaps, let's say, JZ, President Zuma. JZ was probably more about the old way, doing things the same way, the ANC way. Whereas Cyril Ramaphosa is more, with his new dawn. It's about, we need to do things differently. We need to acknowledge the past, but we need to also embrace the future. So one can renew within an old construct, if you will.
But you see, he was saying that in an atmosphere where people were hurtful, very unhappy with the way things had gone the past 9 years, particularly the past 4 or 5 years, and that they were only beginning to know the extent of the rot of the corruption within the body politic and the state in South Africa. One thought that it would actually backfire on him.
It didn't. There's a real South African personality trait that is interesting. If I say to you, I'm so sorry, I'm going to do better this time, generally you'll tend to give me the benefit of the doubt. And all sets of research are showing that the many times President Ramaphosa on the campaign trail, he said, we messed up, I'm really sorry, and we're going to fix this. It worked.
Yes, and the 9 lost years,
yes.
All those. So there's a bit of a remorse, and there's a bit of trust in the person.
And we have that. Shame.
Yeah, and what also tended to happen this time, while on the ballot box they couldn't do it, but there's mentally people separated the party from the person.
They really
so what they said, Cyril, I trust. I like his story. I like what he's about. Oh, what I like about Cyril as well is the one that Mandela had anointed. He may bring in a bit of that which Mandela wanted. So, there's a little bit of that. And they said, the party has messed up. But, the political structure of South Africa is that you vote for the party gives you the leader. So what you better hope for, and what the ruling party is lucky for, is that the person that they put forward as a face of this has got a bit of credibility compared to the previous election, compared to the local elections, where people then said, I don't trust the party, I don't trust the person, I'm going to punish you. So here it's going to be I've got issues with the party, but I love the person that's leading the party. So I'm going to give the party the benefit of the doubt that this person here can renew the party.
Well, we will continue our conversation in a moment, and Ferial, Haffajee, Thebe, Ikalafeng are my guests as we discuss the lead up to the elections. It's over now. We know who's going to be in charge of the country. But hey, it was a colorful spectacle, and you added to that. We'll have more discussion in a moment.